Hello, you're very welcome coming along once again on this journey. I say journey, it's not really, is it? I've found a flaw in my master plan to record videos on my drive to and from gigs, is that recently it's changed drastically in terms of the light. And now, even though it's only just 6 o'clock now in the evening, it is absolutely pitch black outside. So whilst I'm driving along, I'm not really able to film at all what's going on inside. So my only solution really is to sit here and chat to you before I leave, and maybe try and stop a couple of times along the way, depending on time, depending on how we're getting on, whether I'm anywhere close to being at the gig when I actually need to be there. Last night I was out gigging, but I didn't film the journey at all. That's because last night was one of those lovely rare nights when I got to share the journey with a friend of mine, so Dan Mayo, who is another Milton Keynes based comedian, and somebody who in a group of us, we occasionally meet up and write, but we gig together. We did our Edinburgh show together in the summer. And it's really, really lovely when you can be on a gig with somebody else that you know and you get along with, and you can share the journey with them a little bit. We cover quite a lot in our conversations. I didn't think that it was probably I was going to say appropriate to make a video. I don't think there's anything that you wouldn't have, that you'd have been shocked to hear. But it was quite nice. We were able to talk about some new material that we're both working on. We talked about gigs and what we've been up to. And it's just nice to not be completely on your own. But anyway, as a result, I didn't make a video of last night's gig. It was absolutely lovely again, though. We were over in Coventry at a new material night, and I'll be honest, we didn't really know what to expect. We knew before we went that the pub was right in the middle of the kind of student area of Coventry, and when we turned up, there were quite a lot of students in the bar downstairs. But the gig was upstairs in a room above. Lovely room for comedy. It was dark walls, low ceiling. So when people laugh in there, absolutely great. Held probably, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 people. But at the time that the gig was due to start, there was absolutely nobody in there apart from the comedians. Somebody mentioned the word workshop. And whenever you hit the word workshop at a gig, that is alarm bells ringing, because it basically means that nobody's got any confidence that there's going to be an audience turning up. However, just after 8 o'clock, when the gig was due to start, a couple of people came through the door. A couple more people came through the door. Slowly, it filled to the point where we thought, okay, we'd be all right to do a gig to these amount of people. It got to double figures, and we thought, okay, we've all been in a situation where we've done worse, to be honest. I went downstairs to get a drink. By the time I came back, the room was magically full of people, and actually they were really up for it. Really lovely crowd. I think it's always tough on those kind of nights when it is a new act, new material night. I mean, there was somebody there last night doing their first ever gig, somebody there doing their second ever gig, and then there was comedians, Dan and myself, who had done, a few hundred gigs. So from an audience point of view, you just don't know what you're going to get, and sometimes that means that the audiences can be a bit tricky and a little bit difficult at nights like that. But actually last night they were lovely. They were really supportive to the newer acts. They seemed to enjoy what we were talking about and what we were doing. So Dan and I both turned up a little bit skeptical about what was ahead of us, and both left talking about how we would want to go back to that room, and it would be a really great room for every time you've written something new, get yourself down there and try it out. Because anywhere really less than an hour up the road, where you get a decent room and a decent audience in, is pretty much like, once you find one that's good like that, then you put it on your list and make sure that you head straight back there. Slightly different vibe tonight. I'm off to Nottingham to a night that's been run I think it sort of falls under the banner of the Nottingham Comedy Festival, which has been going on for the last couple of weeks. And it's quite a nice idea, this. It's basically a showcase for acts. So a promoter whose name is Jem Bauer came up with the lovely idea of running a few different nights in a venue where you would get 5 or 6 newer acts who are out on the circuit, but try and bring the kind of promoters to us. So they've invited along promoters to each of the nights that they're doing, with the idea that you will go down and do your best 10 minutes, and then the promoters there can see if you would be suitable to book for their night. Now, I'm a little bit conflicted with this because I'm also going to be out gigging tomorrow night with a couple of longer sets. And to be perfectly honest, I would like to run out some newer material and some bits that I don't do quite so regularly in my sort of stronger 10, just because I'm going to be doing longer sets tomorrow night and I don't want them to be coming straight off the top of my head. So I'm a little bit conflicted with what to do, but I've got a lovely hour and 40-minute drive in which I can work it all out. So anyway, I better not sit around just thinking about it too much. I need to get on the road, but I will check in with you later and let you know how we get on. All right, thanks very much. See you in a bit. Right, I'm not going to be long with this because I'm actually running a little bit late for my gig and I want to make sure that I get there on time, if at all possible. But I was talking before I left about the gig that I did last night in Coventry. And one thing that I didn't say, that I think is the case, although I can't be 100% sure, before I went upstairs to the gig, I think I spotted one of my ex-students in the bar, who I was going to check today where he actually went off to university, because I've got no idea. But I was that really played on my mind. I don't think he came upstairs and watched the show, but I can't be sure because, like I said, it filled up pretty quickly in there, so I'm not 100% sure. And it left me thinking, I'm pretty sure that I've never had students that I taught, or in the 3 years that I've been doing I've been teaching 15 years, so there's been quite a lot of students that I've taught over that time. Actually, that's not true. There was my very first show at Edinburgh, there was an ex-student of mine who was in Edinburgh performing, not comedy but music, and somebody else, another ex-student, and him came along and watched the first show that I did in Edinburgh. But that was kind of all right because I was prepared for that. But I don't think I've ever seen any ex-students at the shows that I've been doing. That would be very weird, given that I talk quite a lot about what it's like to be a teacher and to work in a school. It is always odd thinking about where you gig and people that you know being in the audience. It does add an extra level of pressure to what you're doing, because obviously you want it to go well. I think they generally want it to go well. Although I do have quite a few friends who I'm sure would very much enjoy the experience of watching me die on my arse on stage. The hardest one that I ever had was I've recently started having some building work done on my house. We're just coming towards the end of it now. And just before that started in the summer, we had employed the builder, but he wasn't actually on site yet. He wasn't doing anything. So I'd only met this guy a couple of times. And then I went to do a gig up the road in Towcester, which is about 20-25 minutes from Milton Keynes. Close enough that somebody could be there that you know, but far enough away that it's not going to be packed full of people. And I looked out and just saw this builder who I knew was coming to do work on my house. So to be fair, looking just about as uncomfortable with that as I was. And I was quite worried because, you know, I was just picturing the stereotypical kind of builder. He was going to be in my house for the next 6 weeks. He was going to have lads working with him. And I could just sort of picture him going, oh, I think he's a comedian, this one. And then them all being like, go on then, tell us a joke. And that obviously not going well. But fortunately, the gig went really well. And on his second day on the job, he actually turned around to me and was saying that he was very, very worried that I was going to pick on him. Didn't know what I was going to say at all. So it just goes to show, doesn't it? We stress as comedians about kind of various things that happen in the audience. Sometimes we get uptight and we get anxious and nervous. But I think sometimes the audience can be just as anxious too. So it's better if everyone just relaxes and enjoys the show. Right, I'm going to go because I don't want to be late and I need to get to my gig, but I will catch up with you later. Just back from my gig in Nottingham. I'm quite tired now. It's been quite a long week. It was lovely tonight. I was a little bit worried because a friend of mine had played the same gig earlier in the week, midweek, and there wasn't much of a crowd for them to be able to play to. But it was packed tonight. By packed, it's only a small room, holds maybe 30 to 35. It's a little microbrewery. It was lovely. Some of them weren't really there for the comedy, so there was a little bit of an awkward start where the MC went on and spoke to the crowd, and there were some people chatting. He asked them to be quiet while the comedy was on, but because they hadn't gone for a night of comedy, they got a little bit upset with that, and about 5 minutes later they left. To be honest, when situations like that happen, it's better that they do go. It's much better that they go than sit there feeling frustrated and feeling annoyed that they're being asked to be quiet, because they're not going to laugh, they're not going to join in, they're not going to be sort of gracious about it if they're already annoyed that they've been asked to be quiet. So they went off quietly. It just created a little bit of an awkward atmosphere. I tried to, when I then went on, I tried to reference that and talk about that, and I said, oh, nobody likes to see that when people walk out, apart from these guys obviously, because they jumped straight in their seats, which I think settled them down a bit. I mean, it's not the greatest line ever, it's not the funniest line ever, but at least it addressed it. I think it's important when stuff like that happens in the room, that you kind of don't completely shy away from it. So yeah, I did that. Most of my material tonight got decent response and I was enjoying it, although I did drop in a bit. It's a newer bit, not brand new, I haven't written it just for this, but it was a newer bit that I haven't done quite so much, about having a pregnant woman having a sweep, which I talk about. That did not land at all tonight, and I'm a little bit worried because I had planned on doing that tomorrow night. I don't quite know what it was. I don't know if it was that I didn't have the conviction in it to be able to sell it. I don't know if it was a younger audience, so there wasn't many parents in, and the parents that did respond were men, so there didn't seem to be any women who had been through that, so maybe people just didn't really sort of click with what I was talking about, or maybe it's just because the nature of the subject, it's quite and the way that I talk about it is it's a little bit graphic in the way that I talk about it and the images that I perhaps conjure up when I'm talking about it. So yeah, that did not go well at all tonight. I'll have to have a real think about whether I can adapt it or change it to be able to run with it tomorrow night, because I think, given that I'm doing much longer sets, I think I'm going to need it as part of the material that I do. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow night. I am doing very rare for me. I am doubling tomorrow night, so I will be doing 2 gigs in one evening. Fortunately, they're about 15 minutes away from each other, so I've been quite fortunate with that. And yeah, really looking forward to it. So I will definitely definitely make a video and let you know how that goes. But overall tonight, decent night. The aim was to try and get promoters there to book me for other gigs, and the two that I spoke to at the end both said that they would definitely like to have me on at their gigs. So all in all, very much worthwhile. Let's see if how it plays out in terms of preparation for tomorrow. Right, I better go and get some kip, otherwise I will be good for nothing. Take care, see you again.